The workers of the multi-platform TeleSUR paid tribute in memory of the journalists murdered in Gaza and Lebanon by the armed forces of Israel. Celebrations spread throughout the occupied West Bank following the release of 39 Palestinians from Israeli prisons in line with the prisoners' exchange between the occupying forces and the Palestinian resistant Hamas. The Russian Federation warned that a possible creation of the so-called military Schengen will lead to increased tensions in Europe. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news, so stay with us. The workers of the multi-platform TeleSUR have paid tribute to memory of the journalists murdered in Gaza and Lebanon. For more details, contacted with our colleague Gladys Quesada. Good night, Gladys. Tell us.
Hi, thanks for the time and also for the contact here to From the South and also for TeleSUR English. Right now, I'm at the sidewalk near the headquarters of TeleSUR here in Caracas, Venezuela, because the staff of TeleSUR is paying a heartfelt homage to the journalists and other media workers that have been killed in the Israeli siege against Gaza Strip. Also, as we know, many and several other media workers of agencies that are present here in Venezuela, they came to gather and to join us in this homage, in this tribute that we are paying to the media workers that have been killed. Recently, TeleSUR and the president of TeleSUR, Patricia Villegas, posted on X her condemnation of the killing of other journalists, especially the two journalists, the two reporters that were killed during their work. They were reporting is the case of Farah Omar and Rabi Memari, a journalist and her cameraman. They were reporting in the southern border of Lebanon, and they were attacked by Israeli forces with an airstrike, and they perished there. They were killed in the minute, and they passed away. We have this memorial, this felt tribute, because also the Committee of Protection of the Journalists have been reporting day by day of the killing of the journalists in this siege. Is the case as of November 24th of 53 journalists and media workers that were confirmed dead. 46 of them were Palestinian, 4 Israeli, and 3 of them were Lebanese. As of today, November 24th, 11 journalists were reported injured. 3 of them were reported missing, and 18 of them were reported arrested only because they were fulfilling and complying with their duty of informing. The international organizations and media and the international social unions also have been demanding the protection of journalists and reporters during these attacks, this siege of Israeli forces, because one of the main claims is that Israel is trying to silence the reporters that are bringing up the truth of the killings, of the genocide and of the war crimes that Israeli forces are committing in Gaza. Recently also, our reporters, our colleagues back there, who also bring every day the truth about Gaza, they were reporting about the latest killing of a Palestinian journalist alongside with his family, because the targets are not only the journalists, but also the entire families and the friends and the close ones. And they are bombing the buildings where the journalists are taking shelter. And also, this is a war crime. This is a flagrant violation of international law. because as we know, the reporters, the journalists, the media workers, as well as the doctors and nurses and other health workers are protected by international law, but this is a flagrant violation. We stress this information. As you can see, and behind me, there are 53 workers of TeleSUR that are holding candles, lighting candles, and also they are holding banners and with the name of every journalist that have been killed in the Gaza Strip during this Israeli siege that started on October the 7th. This is a report so far. This tribute is just starting. We will have more contacts and, of course, more information in other emissions and future contacts. Back to you.
Celebrations spread throughout the occupied West Bank following the release of 39 Palestinians from Israel prison in line with the prisoners' exchange agreement between the occupying forces and the Palestinian resistant Hamas. The prisoners were received with great joy and commotion by their families in the city of Beitunia in the governorate of Ramallah. The scenes were replicated in different places where, despite the threat of the Israeli authorities, thousands of people joined in chants of resistance and a raised flag of the Hamas movement. The 39 Palestinian released are children and women who were transferred by the Red Cross. In this context, we see in these images a recently liberated Palestinian, Marada Bakir, being welcomed by her family in the middle of slogans for resistance and a sign of victory. We also have images of the joyful reunion of Palestinian former prisoner Malak Solomon with her family after her liberation as a result of the first resistance agreement. It should be noted that a large number of Palestinian prisoners are held under administrative detention and can spend years without trial or the charges against them. In Jordan, citizens hold demonstration in support of Gaza on the first day of the humanitarian truce signed between Hamas and the Israeli regime. The demonstration started in front of Al Hussein Mosque in downtown Amman, in which participants denounced the crimes committed by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. Thousands of people rallied Friday in Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, to show solidarity with Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The march comes on the day that a 4-day ceasefire came into effect in a war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The agreement opened a way for much-needed aid to flow into Gaza for the beleaguered residents. It was also a moment of hope for Israeli families. In this regard, the chairman of the political bureau of Hamas, Ismail Khamenei, informed that efforts will continue to protect the Palestinian people and to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The leaders of Hamas says his movement is committed to a ceasefire agreement as long as Israel is committed to a ceasefire agreement.
We have conducted, with the help of our brothers in Qatar and Egypt, harsh and difficult negotiations over the past weeks. And with consultation with the resistant factions in an effort to protect our people and meet their needs in the face of starvation policy, siege and suffocation. We administrated these negotiations with a high responsibility and with a careful balance that combined concern to relieve our people and stop the killing machine and brutal massacres, and to not allow the enemy to impose its agenda or escape the entitlements of this truce, but rather to impose our vision and priorities.
Let's take a very short break, but remember you can now join us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Colombia has allocated a historic budget of approximately $17.3 billion to the education sector. Authorities informed that the initiative will cover the educational needs in addition to contributing to school infrastructures and food for students. They also reported that the contributions will help Colombians to have access to the country's education system. The project presented by the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, seeks to guarantee that young people can exercise the right to higher education regardless of their socioeconomic condition. The president of Uruguay announced on Thursday from Beijing that he will propose to the Mercosur countries a meeting with China at the next summit of the bloc at a time when Montevideo seeks to strengthen trade relations with the Asian giant. Uruguayan President Luis Lacalle Pou said in a press conference that Uruguay will propose a meeting between Mercosur and China at the next Mercosur summit on December the 7th in Rio de Janeiro under the Brazilian presidency. Following a meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Uruguayan President in Beijing on Wednesday, both countries agreed to upgrade their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. In Canada on Friday, students at the 3 English-speaking universities in the province of Quebec expressed their concern over an announcement by local authorities to double tuition fees for the next academic year. The Quebec government has announced that it will raise tuition fees for non-residents from $6,500 to $17,000. Sebastian Label, Grenier Director of Bishop's Universities, noted that about 30% of its schools, 2,650 students, are from other provinces, while 15% are international.
It's more about just the language. So I think it sends a message overall that English speakers aren't welcome in the province, and if they want to study here, then they have to fork up, $17,000.
They're French, but this is going to deter a lot of students from coming here, especially the ones that are already here. It's great, but for the ones that are coming here in the future, it's not going to make them want to come here anymore,
The first Black Congressional caucus has been elected in Brazil. To tell us the details and importance of such historic event for the South American nation, we have this report from our correspondent, Brian Mir.
According to census data, 57% of Brazil's population defines itself as Afro-Brazilian. Historically, however, this majority segment of the population has been underrepresented in politics. This week, Brazil's first ever Black Congressional caucus elected its leadership and began operating in Brazil's lower house.
We have the responsibility and serenity of understanding the space we have created. We understand the importance of what we are doing, but we aren't here to create a media spectacle. We want results.
All 122 Afro-Brazilian lawmakers in Brazil's lower house have joined the caucus, which was created by passing a law which gives it a seat on Congress's Directorial Council, the highest deliberative body inside of the institution, with the right to present bills directly to the House Speaker.
I've lived for 81 years, and I've dedicated the greatest part of my political life towards this movement. I feel fulfilled. I have a caucus now. I have a front that will give continuity to a struggle that has been going on for centuries.
Although the fight for racial justice in Brazil has traditionally been spearheaded by the left, the Black Caucus represents the full spectrum of political parties represented in Congress. This new development is being greeted with cautious optimism by leaders of the civil rights movements.
We have a coalition government in which most of the aligned political parties haven't normally been on our side, but we have to work with them. So it's important to explain the importance of Black issues within this space.
da negritude nesse espaço é fundamental.
Brian Mayer, TeleSUR, Recife.
Let's take our last break, but before we invite you to join us on our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on the screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. When financial break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Russian Federation warned that the possible creation of the so-called military Schengen will lead to increased sanctions in Europe. The Kremlin points out that NATO statements on a mechanism means keeping the confrontations with Russia alive. Moscow claims that the military alliance stopped considering Russia as a conditional adversary to treat it as an obvious enemy. Slovakia premier on Friday said he considered a war between Ukraine and Russia a frozen conflict that could not be solved by sending more arms to Kiev. Robert Fico and his country's military aid for Ukraine after his new government was sworn in on October 25th. After meeting his Czech counterpart Peter Fiala in Prague on Friday, he said he would prefer that the Russian and Ukrainian side sit at a negotiation table.
I don't see the difference in value issues. We are simply saying that we do not believe in a military solution to the conflict in Ukraine. That is not a question of values, that is our position, which we make based on concrete information when we assess the state of military operations, when we consider the prospects for the development of those operations, and it seems to us that this conflict is, I am speaking for myself, Mr. Prime Minister, forgive me for taking the opportunity, but the question has been asked, this conflict is frozen. This conflict is in a state that it could last until 2029 up to 2030. By 2023, the Russian Federation had more territorial gains than Ukraine. We know that the sanctions policy overall is not working in these circumstances. We are promoting the idea that it is better to negotiate for 10 years in peace or in suspended combat operations than to go to the negotiating table 10 years later without any result when we find that another 500 to 600,000 people are dead.
Amazon workers in Germany and the United Kingdom staged a day of protests demanding a wage increase and better working conditions. In Germany, the strike called by the Verdi trade union began with the first shift Friday and affected 5 plants responsible for preparing the shipment of 20 Amazon logistic points in the country. The organization declared in a statement that they are demanding an immediate improvements in salaries and working conditions. Meanwhile, unions in the UK said that more than 1,000 people at Amazon's distribution warehouse in the city of Coventry staged protests to demand better wages. Several West African countries have warned of a diphtheria outbreak registering around 700 deaths and more than 1,000 cases of the disease. Authorities in several West African countries said lack insufficient supplies to vaccinate and control multiplies outbreaks of the disease. The Nigerian Center for the Disease Control said that more than 11,640 people have been affected in the region, the highest number ever recorded in the history of the country. The government of Mexico has earmarked more than $3 billion for the reconstruction of the houses affected in Acapulco as a result of Hurricane Otis. During a visit to Acapulco, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said that a measure is aimed at reducing the impact generated by Otis on more than 250,000 homes. The restoration will start from the coastal city and will extend to the municipalities of Coyuca in the state of Guerrero, covering 25 kilometers of the Pacific coastline. In Australia, at least 18 homes were destroyed after wildfires in the west of the country threatened the city of Perth. The Fire and Emergency Services of Western Australia informed that a fire originated Wednesday in a pine plantation in a neighborhood in the north of Perth. More than 130 people have been evacuated, although the authorities considered that the number could increase. Uruguayan authorities warn about the rising water levels of the Uruguayan rivers and floods in several departments of the South American country. The National Emergency System detailed that the swelling of the river caused floods which displaced more than 3,000 people in the northwest of the country. The institute also indicated that the rains will continue in the next few hours and that a third flood of the Uruguayan River is expected for the end of November. We have come to the end of this brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We're pleased to share our newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news sources of the latest world events. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and also use us on our socials. We're on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram.